in high definition. Your breaking news and weather authority. This is WITN News at 6.
The former boys assistant basketball coach and taekwondo instructor charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old boy has had his bond reduced by a judge.
There is a catch, though. Clayton Bauman is live outside the Craven County Courthouse in New Bern with today's new developments involving Charles Drake. Clayton.
David Lynette, even if Drake could come up with the $300,000 to get out of jail, he would not be able to. That's because, according to his bond instructions, he needs to be outfitted with an electronic monitoring device. The sheriff's office has final say on who gets one of those devices, and they say that Drake will not be getting one. Call the bond reduction from $500,000 to $300,000 a catch-22 for 29-year-old Charles Drake of River Bend, who was represented by his attorney at the Craven County Courthouse Wednesday. Drake is accused of having sex with a 14-year-old at this Creekview Road home. The catch with the bond requires that Drake be outfitted with a monitoring device, something the sheriff's office says they won't do.
With his international connections, I think he could be a flight risk as far as dangerous. Obviously, there's a danger to children.
Those international connections are said by officials to be from his study of Taekwondo. We're told the former assistant basketball coach at Epiphany School, a private school in New Bern, was about to head to another state for a Taekwondo event when he was arrested.
We had information that he was coming out of Canada and was going to be leaving for Las Vegas, and he was going to be in the New Bern area for a short period of time, so we decided at that time to go ahead and take him into custody.
Drake also has ties to the local YMCA. President and CEO Todd Short says that the man was never an employee of the Y, rather an instructor with Asian Taekwondo who rented a room there. Short says the allegations are scary in that it's hard to really know someone.
You do the best that you can to figure out who you're hiring, and you hope that's enough. And if they don't have any kind of record, then you don't have anything to go by.
And as far as nothing to go by, the Craven County Sheriff's Office says that Drake has no criminal past that they know of. Reporting live in downtown New Bern, Clayton Bauman, WITN News.
All right, thanks so much, Clayton. Well, detectives say they discovered the sex offense after investigating claims that Drake was throwing underage drinking parties at a Creekview home owned by the man's mother.
And sheriff's officials say that more charges could be filed.
Well, after 3 days of deliberations, a jury has found Amanda Hayes guilty of second-degree murder for the death of Laura Ackerson of Kinston.
Judge Donald Stevens sentenced Hayes to serve at least 13 years in state prison, giving her credit for time already spent in jail. Prior to sentencing, Amanda Hayes made a brief statement to the judge, apologizing to Ackerson and her family, as well as to her own family.
I apologize to her family, to her children, to my family, to Fred's family, to everyone who had to work this case.
Hayes' attorney maintained that Hayes did not know her husband had killed Ackerson until they got to Texas to dispose of her body. Grant Hayes was convicted last year. He is serving a life sentence.
Well, on to our weather. After the thunderstorms moved out this morning, temperatures warmed up close to 70 by this afternoon.
And Marvin, we could see more spring weather on the way tomorrow.
I think we will for the next couple of days at least. And this evening we've had some very mild readings, and look at the temperatures this afternoon. 72 Greenville, 74 Kenansville, Kinston, 73 Jacksonville and New Bern, both 77, 78 respectively, 73 Washington. So very warm. Now along the beaches, a little bit cooler there near the ocean water. It was in the lower 60s, Morehead City, Atlantic Beach, Cape Hatteras, and Manteo. Quiet on the radar right now. We could get a spotty shower later this evening as a weak front moves in, but it won't amount to very much. Now currently we're at 66 in Greenville, 69 Kenansville, 72 Trenton, 70 in Aurora, 57 Morehead City. Plymouth tonight at 66, 65 in Windsor. We do have a frontal system that will come through tonight. Now by tomorrow morning it will become stationary and begin to drift back a bit to the north tomorrow. So our northern counties are going to hold probably in the middle 60s, but farther south tomorrow afternoon as winds become more southerly, they'll pop back into the lower 70s, I think, in the afternoon around New Bern, Jacksonville area. But you'll notice not much chance of any rain tomorrow, but that will change, it looks like, On Friday, we do have at least a risk of some strong to severe thunderstorms as a cold front moves in. I'll have more on that coming up in just a bit, Lynette and Dave.
All right, thanks, Marvin. A synthetic drug 5 times stronger than heroin is being blamed for 3 deaths last month in North Carolina and is prompting the Department of Health and Human Services to issue a health advisory.
As a drug law enforcement officials in Eastern Carolina are on the lookout for. Now, Sarah Dodrell sat down with the Pitt County Sheriff and spoke to Greenville residents about this powerful drug. Sarah.
Hey, Dave and Lynette. The drug is called acetylfentanyl, and it goes by the street name China White. According to law enforcement, it's a deadly type of synthetic heroin. A health advisory was released by the Department of Health and Human Services on Wednesday, warning residents that 3 people this year have died from acetylfentanyl overdose in our state. The warning started back in June of last year with an alert from the Center for Disease Control.
Last June we had a sudden death from heroin overdose, and then we had 2 more very shortly after that. So we're quite natural. We focused on what's causing these all of a sudden heroin overdoses, and that's what we're really investigating on now, trying to determine, is there somebody lacing the heroin.
It's hitting here now because I've heard a lot of people talking about it. And if anybody's doing it, it's a very dangerous thing.
Law enforcement officials say they're on the lookout for heroin laced with acetylfentanyl, commonly referred to as China White. They told me they haven't linked the recent deaths in Pitt County to the drug, but it is on their radar.
Very recently, there's a lot of publications on the synthetic heroin now, and we're learning more about that and studying that. And we can't help but wonder why the spike in deaths all of a sudden.
Sheriff Elks says now when they're making a drug arrest, they're testing the drug to see if it's laced with something else like China White.
As a concerned mother and grandmother, that, from experience and knowing people that's been on it, please, it's not nothing you want to do or try.
The state health director has called synthetic heroin a threat to public health. Lynette.
All right, thanks so much, Sarah. Well, the CDC is urging emergency departments to make sure they have a supply of Nexalon, which is an antidote to opiate poisoning.
Social media has many advantages, like helping family and friends communicate over long distances. But one Wake County mother learned that the websites also have consequences after underage nude photos of her daughter were posted on Instagram. Brendan King spoke with an internet crimes detective about preventing it from happening in the first place and is live now with the details. Brendan?
Yeah, Dave, the woman's daughter is now 18, but the photos were taken when she was 14 or 15. Parents I spoke to say it's gut-wrenching to hear that things like this can happen to their children their age. But an internet crimes detective says the first level of protection against crimes like this begins with the parents. Now, Wake County authorities are now searching the Instagram accounts where the underage nude photos were found. Investigators want Facebook, which owns Instagram, to aid in the investigation and turn over who owns the accounts. I spoke with Glenn Webb, who's a detective with Greenville's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force earlier today. He says often the explicit photos are posted with the teen's name and school, which gives a potential predator where they'll be for 6 to 8 hours of the day. Webb also warns that once these photos are online, it's nearly impossible to take them down. But he says parents' involvement is best to keep this from happening to their children.
So my message to parents would be intervene early, know what they're doing online, speak their language, use Google, find out what they're saying means, because something that sounds benign may not be. A lot of these terms are acronyms, and you have to be able to plug them into your computer and study what they're doing.
Webb says teens who send nude or sexually explicit photos of themselves can be charged as adults if they're over 16. That charge is sexual exploitation of a minor, which is a felony. Webb says a constant monitoring of your child's cell phones which apps they have help further protect your child. Dave.
All right, thanks, Brendan. And Detective Webb says that individuals who comment on explicit photos on Instagram accounts can also be charged with cyberbullying.
Well, if you want to let state officials know what you think about a proposal to increase homeowner insurance rates by average of 25%, well, now's your chance. State Insurance Commissioner Wayne Goodwin has called for a formal hearing on the rate hike request by the North Carolina Rate Bureau. He says it appears the hike is excessive and unfairly discriminatory. In the east, homeowners living in Lenoir, Greene, Duplin, Coastal Onslow, and Carteret counties could see their premiums jump by 35%. Martin and Pitt counties are looking at a 22% hike, while Bertie County home insurance could increase by nearly 17%. Now, the hearing will be held August 6th in Raleigh.
Up next, civil rights leaders had one thing in common, being excellent public speakers. And tomorrow's leaders are learning the importance of speaking in front of an audience. Our Cassandra Bella has this week's moment in Black history.
Plus, Chris Obarski looks at the key role Pirate relievers are playing heading into the weekend's matchup with number 4 Virginia.